Hello, everyone, and welcome back to AI Data Mastery, where we explore how AI and data are reshaping B2B businesses. Quick thanks to our sponsors, Evolve with AI and Data Accelerator. We appreciate you. Obviously, we couldn't be here without you. I'm your host, Jason Reno, and today I'm excited because as we were talking on the pre-show, this kind of hits on a couple notes. So my guest here is Dr. Giulietta. She is the founder of CEYBON, which is well, I'll let her tell you about the drink because I don't want to misrepresent it or, but it's a non-alcoholic drink basically. So really inviting her to the show touches on a couple notes because not drinking alcohol is kind of a trend within the entrepreneurial space. I myself stopped drinking years ago, as well as you've done a phenomenal job growing the business from like zero, like you said, no experience to establishing yourself in all of these different businesses. Marketing yourself, obviously business to business, which is one of the prime topics of the show. So I'm super excited to have you. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Jason. I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. So let's jump right in. Tell us a little bit about your background and leading you to founding CEYBON here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a doctor of integrative Chinese medicine, and I basically have had a private health and wellness practice for 23 years at this point. And during COVID, like a lot of people, I had a major kind of a major revelation about a few things, and one of them was, when I couldn't see my patients in person, we started meeting on Zoom, and one of the most painful experiences was to watch, and I'll speak for myself included, myself and my patients start to self-medicate with alcohol when they felt isolated, alone, alienated, fearful, stressed,
Bored.
bored, all of those things. And I thought to myself, surely we can do better than this. Our previous generations, there's such a large kind of cultural history of particularly professional men over drinking as a way to cope. And I think that we're, as a society, we've gotten better and better at getting in touch with our feelings and making a point to connect with one another. And COVID was a real shakeup of that. I think people got isolated and separated again. And so during that time, I just became really passionate about creating another alternative, and not just not just a non-alc drink, because we can do that with soda or iced tea or water, but really something that met the need that alcohol was trying to meet in people's consciousness, but that wasn't really working that well. So, a lot of people drink because they're anxious, there's social anxiety, or they're stressed and they want like kind of a attitude adjustment. When you come home from work and you're kind of wound up, but you want to wind down, that's a
Yeah.
perfect time when a lot of people have a glass of wine or a cocktail. So my goal, and this is where my background in phytochemistry and herbalism came in, was really working to develop a product that functioned, gave you all the sensations like the relaxation, the mental shift, the kind of getting more in your body, more relaxed, that attitude adjustment quality, with a functional non-alcoholic. So that was the drive, and that's
So
where it all started.
so tell me, you came at it from because you're saying the Chinese herbal approach, but then the chemistry approach. So it wasn't like you were I assume very active in the developing of the product then.
I did develop the product. Yeah, I
Okay.
was the actor in developing the product. I also
Fair enough. Well, because
oh,
I guess I was just trying to get to like we were kind of joking around about it before the call. Like you weren't just some other influencer trying to create some energy drink, and so it
no,
was just you like
no.
boots on the ground, so to speak. Development and
No, I was not an influencer. I was primarily influential in creating the product. I did work in a fabulous collaboration with a food chemist, because that when you're creating something that people are ingesting, you have to cover all your bases. It
of
not only
course.
has to do the fun things you want it to do, but it has to be absolutely safe. and absolutely safe across, you know, a wide spectrum of people. So we really, that was a big focus for us. It wasn't, you know, coming out of healthcare, that's my prime directive, is to first do no harm and then help heal. So yeah, I developed the product in conjunction with the food chemist, and it really, I'm very comfortable. I have a long practice of prescribing herbal formulas or supplements for my patients, and I've always kind of leaned into the less is more. I don't send people home with hundreds of pills, or that's not my style. So I wanted to see what would be the simplest and yet most delicious and most uh, effective or transformative formulation. And so I think that was probably the biggest thing that I spent the most amount of time and energy on in the development of the product, in the beginning of the company, other than all of the things that you do when you start a company, like legal and
Yeah.
all that stuff. Yeah.
Besides all that stuff that, you know, keeps you up every single night.
Mhm. 'Cause yeah, I mean, the goal is you really want, you wanna have a marketing strategy, but you also want a product that practically sells itself. So in the minute you get it in front of somebody, you that at that point, the product needs to stand on its own. And so that was what we were really, really passionate about creating, and I feel really great that we did.
How long did it take from like you were like, hey, I want to think of this product to hey, try this product and like you know, like it was or I guess even like ready to go to market. I mean, I'm assuming
Sure.
that's a decent. How long is
I
that process?
I'm an incredibly impatient person, I've been told. So, for me, it felt like an eternity. I've been told that it was very accelerated, but so it didn't start out as a product, it didn't start out as an intention to start a company. You know, I had a healthcare practice, and I created these as, gifts essentially for my patients first during COVID. So and I made them as a concentrate because I could send them in the mail in a little kind of a bitters bottle. And
Uh,
it's so they're, you know, it has a low carbon footprint. You have a concentrate, you send it in the mail easily, and I just gave it to my patients. And they're the ones who actually pushed me to start the company, because it was, I expected that those things would not do any harm. I knew that they would be helpful. I just had no idea how helpful until people started getting back to me, and they were like, "Wow, I can sleep through the night."
what a way to
You
start a
know,
product when you have you already have
yeah,
you already
yeah,
have raving fans telling you like, hey, start
yes.
a product.
And so that's what, you know, I'm not, you know, I'm not a CPG entrepreneur, so it's not my background, but, you know, the products, again, they really called to be born and to be brought into the market. So they started out as these gifts, these little things, then we developed them into a first iteration, within 9 months, and then we did just a test run. And so I think we made like, I don't know what it was. It was like 100 cases or something, and that sold out in 60 days. And then I said, okay, I think we have something here. So then we um, scaled up to 600 or 700 cases, and then that did really well. And then we went, okay, the bottles are great. You know, we started out in a 750 ml, so like a wine bottle. So it's like a kind of a Campari sized bottle. um, and then, you know, we got into certain markets with that, and then the next feedback was like, well, if you really want to get into some big markets, you really need to go see like a real full RTD can. And so then we did a can run this last time, and we're almost sold out of that. So and that's been just 3 months. So now I'm kind of at that crossroads of what do we do? How, do we scale up again, or do we hold here, or
Yeah, I'm looking at the website here. A couple different flavors too. Cactus
yeah,
berry,
yep.
cucumber mint, right?
Yeah, so we generally run, we've 3 SKUs of the bottle and 3 of the can. And they each form, they're not just a different flavor profile, but they each form a different functional profile as well. Some of them are down regulating to the nervous system, they're calming. So for people who drink
Oh,
alcohol because they get anxious or, you know, kind of wound up, those ones are great. The chill, all the chill line, they're all blue color. And those ones have herbs that are very calming, relaxing. They also are relaxing to the stomach. Some people get kind of a nervous stomach, and so some of the herbs in there are really calming to the digestive system too, which is really nice. And then the cactus berry one is a much more uplifting, the Go Play. That's really for people who, used to drink tequila because it's kind of a upper, and they want to go party, they want to go dance. And this is really the herbal version of that. So they're herbs that are not a stimulant, but they're stimulating, and they kind of open up the awareness, open up the kind of level of excitement, and upregulate you. And then the third
And
one
I was
is
just gonna
kind
say, yeah, the third in the wine bottles, there's a few different like happy and bright, and that's
of,
it's
yeah, and bright's kind of in between. It's like it's both calming and uplifting. It's a little bit more um, focused, I would say, on mental clarity and digestive clarity. The ginger is really, it's a very popular. The ginger lemon is probably one of our most popular flavors. People automatically know what that is, and it's cross culturally very very popular too.
makes sense.
The calm is the chill one is it's cucumber and juniper. It's kind of like a little bit like a Pim's cup or a mojito in its flavor profile. And then the happy is our most eccentric. it's it's made from local native California plants that have a smoky, earthy, kind of mezcal-y kind of flavor quality.
Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
I will definitely have to check it out.
But
Always
yeah,
looking for cool alternatives.
I think start to finish, it's been about 3.5 years now. But the full current product line only came out a little more than a year ago. So we built
Gotcha.
the accounts in the last 14 months, I would say.
Okay, so leading into this, then you had I'm assuming, the logos on your website plus, multiple other accounts. How have you grown the business in the last 14 months? How have you established yourself in these?
Yeah,
Because correct me if I'm wrong, your target audience are boutique, like grocery shops, liquor type of stores, spirit stores, that type of stuff, correct?
absolutely. So we do really well. And I should say we started out in B2C primarily. We obviously, because my patients and their friends and their family started the base. And so we started out direct to consumer as the primary focus. And then as I got the aperitif bottles and the cans online, kind of brought them into the market. Then we started to move very quickly, and all of our advice was, oh, you have to get into grocery stores. That's where the big players are. You have to get into grocery stores. Well, that's great. And it is true, but it's not the place, it wasn't the place to start for us in getting into B2B. It was really because we're in a whole different category. We're not just a regular NA. We use 95% organic, 5% wild harvested ingredients, locally made in Napa, California. That's a very niche market. And so we went after, we basically were, our best relationships, our best early relationships were people that had those same values, or businesses that had those same values. So that's farm to table restaurants, Michelin starred restaurants, bars with a very complex cocktail program that are always looking for something new, something different, something unique, something no one else has. So we really leaned into our premium and exclusive side in order to get our initial accounts, which everybody said was, you'll never like getting those kind of top of the tier A-list accounts. Those are the hardest ones to get. And in our experience, in my experience, those are the easiest ones to get for us. And those are the first ones we got because basically I was like, what are all the restaurants, bars, and venues that I personally love to go to and eat and drink at and have experiences at in the Bay Area? And so I
And
started there.
so yeah, so walk me back a little bit. So when you say we got that restaurant, or we got that exclusive place, like how
Mhm.
did you start? You just walked in the door and you're like, hey, I've eaten here
I
before. I want to sell you this cool drink, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. I mean, yeah, I just, I made a reservation. I was like, and I told the host or hostess, hey, I'm a longtime patron, and I have a new product I think you guys would be really interested in, and I don't want to disrupt service, but I'd love to just set up a conversation.
I
And
was being halfway sarcastic, but that's really what you did.
that's really what I did. So I would go to dinner, order my favorite things. And then, and either at the beginning of the night when it wasn't too busy, or the end of the night, and then invariably, many times the chef or the GM would just sit down for 5 minutes, and we'd pour some, and we'd say, "Hey, it pairs really well with this dish you just made. That's amazing." And then they would go, "Wow, you're right. This is," and then they're like, "Well, how am I going to sell this? This is very expensive." And I'm like, if you really want to recover if you want to keep your average order value as high as it is with alcohol, you're going to have to find a premium priced product that actually merits the premium price. Um, and so then they were like, "Oh, not only is this a high quality product that tastes amazing, that feels amazing, that pairs well with what I'm making, but it also is really taking care of our bottom line." And so those, kind of finding the things that really answer their needs, not with BS, but with a really with a with authentic meeting them, is really where it's at. And it's relationships. It's really, the quality of your relationships is what sets the foundation for your success, in my opinion.
That's awesome. And what a cool way to start. Just walking in and, hey, I got something cool for you. Let's check it out. But also though too, like I know we're kind of like brushing it off, but at some point you were kind of winging it going in there with the reservation, but then at the back of your mind you had a plan. Like if somebody sat down at the table, you're like, look, here's the dollars and cents. This is a great product, and here's how it can benefit from you too. So it wasn't just like, hey, buy, but it's like, look, this could be a win-win, and here's how it pencils out for both of us, right?
And actually, that's how I've used AI, is to say, help me get in the mind of a chef,
That
or
is so
a
awesome. That is
bar
so
GM,
awesome.
or a club owner. What are their fundamental needs? Like, obviously they need to make money, right? Obviously they have, and then what's maybe less obvious is their reputation. And what's maybe less obvious is their commitment to sourcing, or and like figure out like what's the calling card for this person, what really matters to them. Because I mean, and when they realize that I've done my homework, and it doesn't matter that I've used AI for that, that's it's still research, right? That it
100%.
shows that you give a blank.
I think it was two or three interviews ago. He was a B2B consultant, and he was just like, there is zero excuse for anybody to get on a sales call, relationship building call, whatever you want to call it, and not know about the other person with AI. Like what used
Mhm.
to take 20 or 30 minutes in perusing LinkedIn and Googling and this type of stuff, you can
Mhm.
literally, AI can tell you everything you need to know about the person within about 3.7 seconds. So there's no
Or
reason that you.
enough. It can
Yeah,
tell you enough about the
exactly.
person.
Enough to, obviously, if you're trying to build that relationship, look like you care, look like you've spent some time. Um, what I like about it too is if you ask the right questions. So once you know about the person, the industry they're in, the business they're in, what maybe in your particular case, the specific location, are they Southern California, Northern
Mhm.
California, Florida?
Mhm.
All those things make a
Right.
difference. And then you can start getting deeper into AI, like what are their wants and needs? What is their target demographic?
Mhm.
All of these, go
Totally.
several
And
layers deep into their wants and needs before you even, walk in the door in your case.
and this is where, it's time over money, or money over time kind of equation. So, I started out where there was not a moment of appearing to be caring. It was deeply caring. Like, if they've seen my face for 10 years at that restaurant, they know that I care about their restaurant. They know that I respect what they're doing. And so that was really, that was a starting point. So, and a lot of those first accounts, they don't make us a lot of money. They're a couple, handful of cases at a time. They're not the big players, but they're the credibility, they're the trust, they're the kind of jewels in the crown in many ways. that open the next doors and open the next doors.
I was just gonna say that was one of my next questions was that this whole business isn't surviving just off places you've eaten at.
No,
so
no. So yeah.
How did you go to the next level once you exhausted that
Sure.
resource, which was perfect because, like you said, you established the trust and credibility. So now you didn't walk in there with like, hey, do you want to be the first? It's, hey,
right.
This is the next hottest thing. I just landed these 5 places. Do you want to be
And then you
number
leverage
6?
those relationships. You ask them like, hey, we're expanding, and we went to you first. Where do you think we should go next? And then like, I think it's really, really great to ask them to help drive the direction because they're invested now. They're part of the family. And so we definitely use that. And then from there, we got into more, I think we went through to high-end restaurants and bars. And then from there, we got into some music festivals because some of the bar people do pop-ups in the music festival. So they brought us in and, some of our accounts. And so that was another place where we started to show up with a bigger volume. From there, now we're a little bit more credible, right? We were in a number of accounts. So now the grocery stores, the smaller, at least grocery stores, are interested because they're seeing, oh, you actually have a track record. You're actually at this place. That's really cool. And then when that cool customer who ate there comes into our shop and wants to buy something cool, they're looking for you. And so, it led into that. This is still small potatoes, right? This is still very organic growing. Um, and then at some point I thought, well, we really need to have a distributor, a broker or a distributor to get a larger reach. And so, and this is where it gets super tricky with small B2B. Everybody tells you if you want to scale, you have to have a distributor. If you want to scale, you have to have a broker, blah, blah, blah. Well, yes and no. Because what we worked very briefly with one, and we had some reps were amazing and incredible, and but for the most part I would say, and this is not this is I would say this is mostly just not understanding what our product was. We were going through alcohol distributors, and their reps don't have any, and we did that because we thought, well, we want to get into all the places where alcohol is, and we want to go in with a small distributor that goes into all the high-end places, and they're already going in there because there's so much demand for NA that we want somebody who's already in there to be bringing NA into the bar. And it was, it's not a wrong strategy, but at the time things were changing so fast that they ended up not being the best rep for us, the best kind of space, because their team really didn't understand what we were or how we were or what to do with us or how to even do a tasting for us. So in effect, we were paying for that. We were losing the margin that we would pay the distributor for them to not do personalized selling, but actually just drop off bottles. And that, at that point,
Yeah, it just didn't work.
It doesn't, it doesn't really, that doesn't pencil out. You really need to open the bottle, talk about the product, share it with and share that enthusiasm. That's what the selling process is, right? Is like education and building enthusiasm. And so, what we learned from that, we got some accounts from that. It wasn't a total fail. But at that point I realized like, well, there's kind of this thing that happens. I don't know if you see this with B2B where people are, there's certain products that are meant to scale at the level that people talk about scaling. And there are other products that are meant to grow slowly and steadily and evenly as a small niche item. And we realized that, we're kind of in the second category. And that at least for this part of the lifespan of this company, this is what we're meant to do. And not to dilute the quality of our product or the message or its sourcing or anything, because that's what we built the whole business on. So at that point I kind of made a strategic decision where I said, we're gonna bring it back a little bit tighter and a little bit leaner and a little bit slower. And what I did instead of using an alcohol distributor is we do use a couple of online distributors who have a national reach. And so that's been nice for us to get out in the national field as opposed to just California. And then the other thing we did was to get to onboard a 3PL or fulfillment. So we don't do any of the fulfillment ourselves. We do the sales and we keep the relationships, and then the orders come in and they get fulfilled by our warehousing.
Nice.
And that was, that seemed to be the fewest moving parts and most effective kind of machinery build for us.
Yeah, you can't argue with keeping it simple, right?
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's for other
Well, like you
products, I
said,
think.
simple and lean, especially when you're trying to grow a business. The last thing, I mean, I used to ski, but I mean, what's the analogy? Like kind of getting out in front of your skis. It's very easy for, small businesses as they're growing in the beginning to kind of get out in front of your skis, meaning, get
Mhm.
overextended. And then,
Yep.
yeah, next thing you know, you can't survive or, you're not around anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, you know, it's really important to be able to take advice and then also know what to do with it. You know?
Fair enough. Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's when I was telling you before a couple of lacrosse players, and it's like it's being coachable, right? It's like I tell my
Yeah,
kids all the time, but then it's funny being a dad, and I know you're a parent as well, but it's crazy because it's like it's constantly giving them advice, but then it's like, oh, I do that too. Damn it, I got to be coachable too, or it's
totally.
anyways. Not to digress, but
No, I mean, in the process of receiving support and advice and, professional, mentorship, it's very important not to turn off your own internal intelligence. So, you don't wanna give away your own sovereignty. So certain times you have a gut instinct that doesn't make sense, but it's actually the place you need to the direction you need to go. And,
yeah,
and
I
I've
mean, the term going with your gut didn't come out of left field. Like it's.
No. And I've fumbled that one a couple times, and I've definitely regrouped and been like, "You know what? Actually, just trust yourself."
Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So moving forward and, continuing to grow the business, even, slowly and organically, like you said, what do you what's in play? What do you have in store? What do you think it's going to take, going into 2025 and, obviously
Mhm.
moving forward and for the rest of 2025, I should say, and into 2026? Are you
Yeah.
looking into other avenues, trade shows, online marketing, email marketing, I don't know.
Mhm. I mean, I did a ton of the first 12 months of the product being out. We did a lot of test products too, and so we went to a ton of trade shows, a ton of places because I just want to get the product, even the kind of beta in front of people and just see their actual reaction, right? So, like, we took it to the Psychedelic Science Symposium in Denver. And it was just like we just made these samples, and I was like, I just want to see what this demographic does with this because they're not drinking alcohol because they're doing other stuff, right? So they're kind of an interesting and they're open to a functional
Yeah, but you
experience,
can't
but
you can't take mushrooms all the time, right?
right.
I mean, I guess
And
maybe in theory, but
right. And I was like, "But we're not a trip. So are they gonna be interested in us? Are they not gonna be interested?" Like, they're open on the one hand, but they're usually wanting something way more experiential than what we're offering. But we sold out of everything, and people were really excited, and that was, and then we just did a lot of, like, festivals and conferences and those kinds of events just to get an idea, get a look, see, feel on, who's getting this stuff, who isn't.
and,
So
and
we
and obviously it went well. It was sold out.
it was mixed. Some of it went really well, and some of it were like, "This is not our audience." So,
I guess you learned.
again, you
That's the whole
learn.
point, though, right? You learn.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't think we'll be doing that anymore. It's a lot of work. I think we concluded that chapter with some great data. I do think we continue to have I think we expanded and then we held and then I contracted to make sure all we had operational excellence before I went any further. And I really feel that we've achieved a level of operational excellence in terms of fulfillment and the development I'm really happy with, and that's complete. Now we're really interested in what partners can we work with, what collaborations can we do. There's certain, other beverage makers that I would love to work with, and I think it would be valuable. I think there's some untapped markets for us that now that our operations, I feel I can build on. Now I'm ready to go for. And so I just think in the name of not getting out in front of your skis, it's really important to know exactly where your skis are and what your skis how your skis perform before you hit the black diamond. Um, and I feel good about that right now. So yeah, we are poised to grow again in the next level.
Nice. Can you, if you don't mind, could you share with us some of those untapped markets you're thinking about or have in mind?
I mean, well, Southern California, we have probably 25 accounts in Southern California, but LA is an enormous market and it's just our demographics. So building out into that market,
Okay,
is
gotcha.
the
You mean
next step.
expanding geographically?
Geographically is one way I mean it, and another way I mean it is in, different types of venues. So we just started getting, we went in to the Ritz-Carlton residence spas at Waikiki, and that was a really great account for us. And so it was, and then we went into Chaminade Resort and Spas here in Northern California, and that made me realize, like, oh, spas are really an untapped market for us. Um,
It's so funny when you were when you were saying that and talking right now, and you're like, oh, alcohol distributors, and I was like, what about like med spas and like health clinics and like,
right.
and then I'm also thinking because now you're selling a 6-pack at a time, or like you could bottle it up,
Mhm.
like, hey,
Mhm.
now you're selling
Yeah.
multiple units, so to speak. So I don't know that when you said
Exactly.
that, that's what I was thinking like 10 minutes ago in the
Exactly.
conversation.
And that's where, as a founder, I can get very myopic. So I was so proud of the product development tasting like a real adult cocktail that I wanted to put it up against real adult alcoholic drinks. And so for me, that was my obsession, was getting it into bars and having people like feel included. Because as a non-drinker, you can feel kind of excluded from social culture, right? And you're like, here's a bubbly water, well, thanks. So for me, that I got very myopic on that. I didn't open my aperture as much as I should have, because I was so obsessed about helping people who don't drink feel just as welcome and just as catered to as people who do drink. And so now I kind of got my head out of the sand and I'm like, wait a minute, there's a few more markets here. So,
Well, yeah, 'cause especially in the beginning, as somebody that stopped drinking in that beginning time when you stop drinking, there is that awkward stage where you're like, oh, I feel kind of a little bit left out or something. I mean, nowadays it doesn't bother me at
mhm,
all, but but also like I'll have an alcoholic beer, but 3 or 4 years ago there was no alcoholic beer. Maybe a restaurant, you walk up to a bar, my wife would
nothing.
order a drink, and
Right.
you ask them if they have an alcoholic beer, and the guy's reaching back in the bottom of the freezer, dusting off.
Or
They're like,
Klaus
I think we
Holler,
got one
yeah.
left. Yeah, exactly. Now there's all these
Yeah,
different brands and stuff, but yes, stuff
totally.
like this is a really
And
cool alternative.
yeah, and for like the situation you're describing, for sure. And then also, coming from healthcare, my first area of emphasis was fertility medicine. So I was working with a lot of newly
Oh,
vulnerably pregnant women who didn't want to drink but didn't want to disclose at work that they were pregnant, or didn't want to disclose to anybody yet that they were pregnant, and not a lot of options for not drinking in a social setting and feeling really
but this is
awkward.
safe for a pregnant woman.
Only your gynecologist and obstetrician can tell you that,
Of
you know,
course, yes.
ultimately, but we do, our goal is to make them safe for everybody, yes.
Okay, very cool. Um, Wonderful. So geographically, obviously, if the majority of your clients are in California, I mean, your demographic, obviously lives all over the United States.
Mhm.
So how are you, if you're, let's just say you're going to go into your next demographic is, I don't know, South Florida or Vegas or some other place, what's kind of the game plan to get in there? Do you travel out there and start going to restaurants and knocking on doors? Do you
No, I
have
think
somebody
it's
picking up
really,
the
again,
phone and calling?
Yeah, I think it's developing relationships and specific relationships. Like, we're really interested in. I'm from the East Coast originally, and so I can, I frequently go back to New York, and um, but I think that's a great market for us. LA is a great market for us. Aspen, Vale, kind of environment is a great market for us.
Fort Lauderdale, those type of Florida places, you know.
Yeah, or what's the west coast of Florida? I'm told St. Petersburg kind of area,
Oh
I
yeah,
guess.
St.
Yeah.
Pete's for
I
sure.
think would be a good option for us. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. There's a lot there. It's an open field, and it's just picking what's the best place to focus on right now. Um, I, it's easy to kind of get deer in the headlights with all the possibilities and all the directions. And so I try to triage it in terms of like what's this moment about for you know.
There you go. Because I mean, you also have to look like those locations you just mentioned. Because even just trying to tying in data a little bit, one of the things that you have to look at is is St. Pete's year round, or there's seasonal. The
Mhm,
snowbirds coming down, where New York might be more year round in terms of
mhm,
nightlife
right.
and
Mm,
lifestyle, whatever you want to call it. So that's a
yeah.
lot of things to factor in.
And boomers are not really, boomers drink. And it's the younger generations that are drinking less and less. So we tend to skew towards a younger audience.
When you say younger, you're like 35 and under, 30 and under.
I mean,
Like,
there are people,
who do you think is your perfect client?
I do think around in the range between like in the 30s, I think is probably the largest sector. I think, and then you get older than 30s that don't drink, that are the most dedicated and passionate, and consistent, and have the palate and experience to understand the nuance of the flavor profiles we've created. Um, and then the younger generation, it just depends. Some of them, and it's uneven, right? So
Yeah, yeah, no, I
there
know.
are
There's
young
obviously
people that are incredibly, yeah,
yeah, you have
hip to this.
consumers at every age level, but I could understand that because when you're still in your early 20s or mid 20s, you're probably still drinking and not necessarily looking for an alternative at that point. Although there's many exceptions, I'm not going to
God,
say that, but
it's
then
it's kind of blown my mind. My daughter's 23 and she works in a bar actually. She works in one of our accounts. And it's been fascinating because the owner of that bar doesn't drink, and they are really dedicated to having at least 5 NA options, if not more, on the menu at any given time.
yeah, you
And
see a lot of like
it surprises
mocktails
me.
and all kinds of different options nowadays. It's
Yeah.
like I said, it's definitely becoming more popular everywhere.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Wonderful. Well, this has been enlightening. I'd love to learn about the product. I'm going to jump online and order. For those of you that haven't already, I should have mentioned the website sooner, but it's CEYBON.com. Please check it out. Many different options here. And Dr. Giulietta, it's been a pleasure having you. One last question that I always ask to kind of wrap things up is, do you have a book recommendation? I know you have some books behind you on the shelf there, but any uh, one book that stands out where it's like, hey, I read this once a year. This book has really, really changed things for me, or shifted things in my life. What's a book recommendation?
Oh my goodness, that's a great question. I tend to read more. I have a strong interest in herbalism, so I study a lot of the older texts about plants. And my background is in Chinese herbs, so I'm always needing to add more information about the Native American herbs here, and Western herbs and plants, because all of the spirits, all the alcohols that we drink originally came from plants. They're all botanical. And so there's a guy, kind of a weirdo. I don't even think he's alive anymore. Let's see.
It's kind of
Hilarious.
hilarious.
Yes.
That's classic.
Sacred. It's
What's your
called
favorite book? Oh, this guy's kind of a weirdo.
yeah, just spoiler alert, I might be too. Um, it's called Sacred and Herbal Healing Beers. And and the guy's name is Booner. He was a trippy dude, but I'm like, every time I'm I feel like I'm getting a little too normal, I just read some of that and I'm like, no, actually, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm solid. Yeah, I belong in society.
Yeah. But I mean, if I can act as a bridge between those kind of people that lived in the woods and just, picked plants and, lived in a mud hut, and running a modern CPG product line, I want to be that bridge, because I think there each of them has a place in this world,
Of
and
course.
so yeah, I would say look and read weird things that maybe don't make sense to you, and let it inform you or loosen you up as you still remain completely highly functional in this world.
I love that because everybody's like, oh, read something from Darren Hardy or Stephen McCovey or some practical book or whatever. But I like that.
Mhm.
Grab something weird and unusual that you wouldn't expect or wouldn't
Kind of
otherwise
shakes you
grab.
up a
And
little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
See where the road takes you, right? The road
Yeah.
less traveled.
Yeah. And our Instagram is just at CEYBON, CEYBON too. So if anyone's on the gram, you can check us out
Oh
there.
yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'll drop that in all the show notes and everything. But yeah,
Cool.
CEYBON, CEYBON.com, and then at CEYBON, CEYBON if you're on Instagram. Don't forget to follow. Don't forget to.
CEYBON.
I'm sorry. What did I say?
CEYBON.
Oh, did I say CEY?
I, I'm not sure.
Oh, I honestly, I probably said it so fast. My apologies. Yeah, it's funny. I've said it on another show because I can't pronounce certain words, like even like Massachusetts, which I always fumble around with. But anyways, yes,
Yeah.
CEYBON. If I
No
probably just
worries.
said it too fast, but well, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Giulietta. We really appreciate it. Learned a lot here about a great product plus B2B client acquisition completely organically from the ground up. Starting with building trust and credibility was the first thing, right? Go to who you know, go to that warm sphere of influence, build the trust and credibility, and then leverage that up from there and continue to, take it one level at a time. Don't get out in front of your skis. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here, and look forward to possibly having you on the show later on down the road.
Thank you so much, Jason. Great questions. Great show.
All right. Thank you so much to my listeners, our listeners. I appreciate everybody's time. Look forward to seeing you guys again soon on the next episode. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Take care.